Hello and welcome back to the Passion Stories podcast. I'm your host, Emma Cole, and I've got an absolutely epic episode for you. This guest is going to blow your mind. But before we get into it, I've had a phenomenal couple of days, full of firsts, very linked to this episode actually, because I don't know if anyone saw the Perseid meteor shower, which was on recently. Unreal. I saw my first ever shooting star. I saw two. How cool. I mean, the coolest thing ever. My friend Georgia came to stay for a couple of days and we've been stargazing, and it was just kind of thing that gives you goosebumps and you're like, oh my gosh, how cool is the planet? How cool is the world? How small are we in the universe? Like, unreal. And then the next day, I know it gets better. The next day, we go out paddleboarding and we see dolphins in the wild. Not one, but two. I know, honestly, just the kind of couple of days that you're like, oh my word, how lucky am I? Just unbelievable scenes and just so grateful, so joyful, so lucky. What a wonderful world we live in. So I hope that everyone's been, able to make the most of nature recently and see some really cool things, because we just love that. Which takes me to our guest for this episode, as I am joined by National Geographic Explorer and wildlife filmmaker, Bertie Gregory. Bertie's got plenty of series out there, all on Disney Plus, called Epic Adventures with Bertie Gregory, Animals Up Close with Bertie Gregory, and Secrets of the Penguins. He's worked on the BBC David Attenborough series. He's also been one of BAFTA's youngest cinematography winners for his work on Seven Worlds, One Planet. And he's got a host of incredible awards. He's a BAFTA winner, and he's here to chat about his new show called Sharks Up Close, which is currently streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu, and it's seriously cool. He talks all about sharks, I know, epic, and his career, how he got into making documentaries, videography, starting with photography, and all the skills that actually you have to learn to become someone that films and presents in these really raw, hostile, incredible environments and get so up close with such amazing animals. And I mean, Bertie's going to take us through all of it, and it's utterly fascinating. So without further ado, let's welcome to the podcast, Bertie Gregory. Bertie, thank you so much for coming on the Passion Stories podcast. It is wonderful to have you on. How are things? Whereabouts are you in the world?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm actually in LA at the moment. Enjoying the sun, doing some press stuff, some publicity stuff for a new show that I've got coming out. So yeah, life's good.
And yeah, so this new show, Sharks Up Close. I mean, I've actually just watched it and I had goosebumps and kind of like a lot of fear, I have to say, watching it. It was pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, just to kick off, what fascinates you about sharks?
Well, I think, it's funny you bring up fear, and I think that is the reaction of most people when you say sharks, particularly when you say things like great white sharks. That was the goal of the episode, to film a great white shark, and they've got to be, never mind kind of the most feared shark, they're probably the most feared animal on Earth, the most famous and the most feared. And so, it's 50th anniversary of Jaws this year, and I'm sure a lot of pop culture fear of sharks, particularly great whites, stems from that film. And so 50 years on, we thought, now is a good time to kind of check back in with great whites, see how they're doing, and see if maybe we've got it all wrong. And so that's kind of the how it started. And we ended up going on this crazy adventure to try find them.
And I mean, as soon as you mentioned Jaws, all I can hear is the theme tune coming in. Obviously, I mean, it's a legendary film, but is Jaws the reason why we are so afraid of sharks?
Well, it's interesting because I'd say it certainly contributes to it. I think when most people, most adults, when they think of sharks, that that's the first thing they think of. And I think it's very easy to be critical of Jaws in sort of its portrayal of sharks. And I guess what followed Jaws, both in sort of the what happened straight after and up until more recently, is is a real backlash against great whites and other sharks. So it's easy to be critical of it, but at the same time, it's a pretty phenomenal thing. It's certainly got people talking about sharks, and it was kind of the first time they'd entered into pop culture, which I think is generally a good thing. So yeah, fascinating film. But I would say I think we humans have sort of an innate fear of things we don't know, we don't understand. And because sharks are a large, well-armed, often predatory, they do kill people. That does happen, very rarely, but it does happen. I think it's all those things combined. But I think to say that, Jaws is the reason we're scared of sharks is probably not fair. Do you know what? I think the key thing is we are afraid of things we don't understand and we don't know. And sharks we don't understand, and they live in an alien environment to where we live. So yeah, I'd say that's probably why.
And I mean, you, in the documentary, you say that you want to dive with a great white without a cage. I mean, I love it. But my favourite bit is when you say, my mum doesn't want me to. How did you broach this conversation with your mum?
Well, I've learned that I've learned the hard way that I always need to tell her if I'm doing something that is perceived to be dangerous. I'm not going to say dangerous. Perceived to be dangerous. It's best to tell her afterwards. But I guess the reason for that being the mission is not because I'm sort of some kind of adrenaline daredevil, adrenaline junkie or whatever. It's simply because the way the great white sharks are traditionally filmed is with a cage. And sharks, they don't want to swim near a weird metal box. You have to attract them. And so bait is thrown into the water, blood and guts and all sorts. And as soon as you're doing that, using an attractant, the shark is no longer behaving naturally. And that's what drives me. I want to film animals in their environment doing cool, wild behavior. I don't want them kind of reacting to me or whatever. So yeah, that's why no cage. And the reason we chose that particular place, Plettenberg Bay in South Africa, was because it has a very unique kind of topography near to the seal colony where the sharks hunt, which allowed us, when many, many factors needed to come together, to dive with a great white shark without a cage safely. I'm not for 1 second saying that we're just sort of like, we're just going to give it a go. It's actually quite boring, our approach. It's very easy to portray it recklessly, but it's the complete opposite. I mean, you wouldn't believe the sort of Disney health and safety insurance meetings that go on. And so, no, everything we do is very calculated. We have an amazing team. So yeah, it's well calculated, because ultimately, if something bad happened to us, that would be, not great for me. But also, more importantly, it would do the absolute opposite for the reputation of what we want to do for the sharks.
Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't just sharks that you filmed. It was also, I think there were a lot of seals, but there was a bit where there was whales and their calves and dolphins and you all in the water at the same time. What was that like?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I definitely learned on that shoot was that, I've known this for a long time. Annoyingly, Mother Nature doesn't read the script. And so you need to be good at pivoting, and you need to be passionate, very on brand for the podcast. You need to be passionate, and you also need to be persistent with that passion, because Mother Nature is not reading the script. And so we really wanted to show that. It turned out that this was not in the script, that finding the great white sharks ended up being incredibly challenging. We thought it was going to be very easy, and we wanted to include that. And I think that's important, including failure, because you go on Instagram or whatever, and everyone's just winning the whole time, and it's so unrealistic. And so, the style of our show is, it's not just about the wildlife, it's about our adventure. And we want the viewer to feel like they're part of the team. And so we want you to experience that failure with us. And I think not only is that reflective of life, which is important, and the reality of filming animals, but it also means that, if you've got the troughs, that makes the peaks even higher. And yeah, to the whale encounter you were talking about, we're there to film sharks, but we love animals. We're in the business of filming animals. So when cool opportunities present themselves, we go film them. And so, yeah, we came across this southern right whale mother and calf. I got in the water, and it turned out she was asleep, which was wild, super chill. And then the calf was actually riding on the mum's tail, which I've never seen before. That was super cute. And then a bunch of dolphins turned up, started harassing the mother and calf. The mother was getting really wound up by it, and the dolphins were just being smug and annoying, and sort of, the calf was loving it, mum was not. And then a second mother and calf turned up, and it was just absolute chaos underwater, magical encounter, and so cool to be in the water with that and just have this ringside seat to a whale and dolphin party.
Yeah, amazing. And when you're in the water with these animals, do you keep sort of a set amount of distance, or like what were you thinking and what was going on in your mind whilst the dolphins were annoying the whales?
Yeah, so the dolphins, super fast, super maneuverable. They if they want to be filmed, they'll come rip over to you, and you can't sort of pursue them in any way. The whales are a little different. They are a little bit more shy, a little bit more nervous. So it's really about kind of earning their trust. So it's all about approaching incredibly slowly up to a set distance, and then giving them the opportunity to either come over or not. And a lot of the time they just kind of they at that time of year with the calf small, they don't really travel around that much. They're not on any kind of epic migration. They're just chilling in that bay. And so it's really important to do it, make sure it's on their terms. And that mum and calf, the one that was napping, decided to come over to us. And what was really cool was that we met her with the dolphins not there. So she kind of had an opportunity to be like, okay, this sort of weird thing, don't know what you are, but you're like chill, whatever. And it was really important that we had that opportunity, because it then meant we were kind of in her bubble when the dolphins arrived. And so it was an interaction between her and the dolphins. And it meant that she'd kind of seen us. I think if we'd arrived at the same time as the dolphins, I mean, she was like trying to tail swipe the dolphins, which, they can be like 50 tons. That's like not a good thing to get swiped by. That's like game over. And so because we were already there, you could see she was totally aware of us, and she could have chosen to like come over and smack us like she was doing with the dolphins, but she didn't. And it was just great seeing the calf in the middle of all this, like, wow, so many things.
I mean, it just looked utterly incredible. And I mean,
I guess the one thing I would add, it was like in the world of AI generated things, it was honestly like being in like some kind of AI prompt whereby, someone was like, okay, I'm in the water, whale, okay, whale and baby whale and dolphins, no more whales, no more dolphins. It was like, this is just ridiculous. And so often with nature that like doesn't happen. So often the weather turns against you, like the animal doesn't cooperate, whatever. It was just nice that for once, like everything just kept getting more and more ridiculous.
I mean, I was watching it and I had utter goosebumps, and all I think was like, oh my gosh, imagine actually just being there, actually being amongst it. And so, I mean, earlier you mentioned failure and talked a bit about the weather there. Are you referring to the fact that you didn't get in the water with a great white shark?
Yeah, so I mean that was our goal, and that was a shame. But I think what was kind of nice about it is one, gives me an excuse to go try again sometime.
That's my next question.
yeah, that's a no-brainer. But I think the other thing that it does is it shows that what we do is very calculated. In that, like, we do find a great white shark, spoiler, and we could have got in the water with it, but we chose not to because the conditions were not perfect. Because when a shark attacks a person, the vast majority of the time, there's pretty conclusive proof that it's a case of mistaken identity. Very rarely when a shark attacks does it actually eat the person. They hunt using the element of surprise. If you're hunting a prey like a seal, they've got a really kind of nasty bite. A great white shark might look invincible, but they don't want to get injured, so they come in really hard and fast to kind of immobilize their prey very quickly. So if they're coming in not really sure whether something is their prey, by the time they hit it and go, hang on, this doesn't taste like seal, it tastes like person, I don't like person, your legs come off and you've got catastrophic injuries and you're going to bleed out and probably die. And so for that reason, our job is to make sure that we get in the water in a situation where the shark has no opportunity to mistake us for something that it wants to eat. And so the fact that we didn't get those conditions come together because it was in very shallow, turbulent water meant that we could go, no, we're not going to do this. And I'm very proud of that, because I feel like a lot of shows made about sharks, especially ones being made now, and I won't name names, I'm sure people can use their imagination. Like, sharks have just become this like, yes, okay, our show is for entertainment, but like that is not the priority. The priority is the well-being of the animal and representing nature in the right way. And I just feel like so many shows now, it's sort of still this sort of man versus nature, sharks and this terrifying beast, and it's like, just chill out. Like, sharks are awesome. We don't need to like ham it up. Like, let's be sensible. Jaws was made in a different time. We've moved on from that now. We've learned from that. We don't need to make kind of sensationalist craziness, but it sells, and so there are a lot of people still doing it, sadly.
And do you feel quite a bit of responsibility then as a wildlife documentary filmmaker in terms of, encouraging people to protect and to sort of cherish wildlife in that respect?
Totally. I mean, I, on a personal level, have like gained so much from the natural world, not just incredible experiences, but, a job. It's an incredible privilege. And so, alongside the fact that it's the right thing to do to look after nature and all that stuff, I feel like it's my job to give something back. Never mind the fact that, looking after nature shouldn't just be something that we do because it makes us feel warm and fuzzy, or it's the right thing to do. On a selfish level, we need nature. And I just feel like our society has this, terrible miscommunication with sort of the natural world, and that protecting nature is sort of at odds with sort of progress and enterprise. When, the reality is nature gives us so many things we take for granted, the air we breathe, clean water, productive soils for our food, like all these like ecosystem services that it just seem to be sort of put to the back seat, and you get called a tree hugger. It's a bizarre situation we find ourselves in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And is that frustration of getting through to people, is that the hardest thing about your job?
I mean, to be honest, I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm actually not that frustrated by it, because actually, when you get the opportunity to like, sit down, or people sit down and watch one of my shows, like, it's actually like nature does all the hard work. Like, we are all born, being obsessed with nature. If you put a baby in a box with a rabbit and an apple, it's gonna play with the bunny and eat the apple, right? And then something changes in our psyche, and so actually, we're born with this innate love of the natural world. We have a caveman instinct to operate kind of in a sustainable way, at one with nature, and we kind of lose that as we grow up. So I think my job is kind of reconnecting that kind of missing link.
And this obsession with nature, I mean, as a kid, were you in a box with a rabbit? Like, where does this passion for wildlife come
Sounds a bit
from?
weird, doesn't it? I should probably come up with a way of phrasing that differently. So I grew up surfing, sailing, family obsessed with water sports. I used to go down to Cornwall a few times a year from when I was like 0. And I think when you grow up in the ocean, being cold and salty, you gain an appreciation for kind of, and a comfort with being outside. I think that's probably where it came from.
And the photography and sort of the film side of things, because I had a rumor that at school you were told that you weren't very good at photography. Is this true?
I mean, I wouldn't want to, throw anyone under the bus. I was not good at photography in sort of the traditional ways that photographic talent is quantified. I'll put it that way. That was some politician work there.
That was fantastic.
And I understand, because I'm not interested in photography. I'm interested in wildlife. Photography and filmmaking are ways to channel that obsession and get other people excited about it. Of course, I am interested in cameras for the function of being good at filming wildlife. I don't really get excited about filming other things. I mean, I can do it because I know about cameras, but I'm definitely interested in wildlife first, photography second. Yeah. You wanted some naming and shaming there, and I'm not.
No,
I'm not. You were baiting me into that, and I'm not falling for it.
I just wanted to know if the rumors were true, and I think that's a legit question.
Well, I was also told, while we're on the topic of being told things at school that are interesting, I was told that I should keep the photography as a hobby and get a proper job. And I was told that. I mean, that I just feel like, our society, and this has changed hugely in the last, like, in the years since I was in school, like the idea of like what is a proper job, and the idea of, I mean, coming back to the word passion, like the idea of doing something that is your passion, not just like a thing that society says you should do. And that's no discredit to people that I guess do like proper jobs. I mean, it's amazing. But I think it's so important that you do something that you're passionate about. If you're lucky enough to be in a position where you can choose what you do, because you spend most of your life working, so why not make it something you enjoy and passionate about? And I think you'll ultimately be good at it as well.
Completely.
So I was told when I was at university, part of the reason I went to study at Bristol University was because that is where the legendary BBC Natural History Unit is based that makes the David Attenborough Planet Earth series. I went there not because the biology program is particularly good, although it is. I went there because I knew I'd have 3 years where I could network with people in the industry. And I remember on my first day at university, I will not name the lecturer. The lecturer gave a presentation about the opportunities of the university would give you. And one of the things he said was, we've got amazing ties with the BBC Natural History Unit, which was just down the road, like, less than a mile from where the lecture theatre was. And I went up to him afterwards, like a puppy dog, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and was like, I want to make wildlife films when I grow up. You mentioned the ties with the Natural History Unit. How good are those ties? And do you know what he said? He looked at me and was like, another one. He's like, put it this way. You studying biology here is like you being interested in football. Just because you're playing down the road from Old Trafford doesn't mean you're ever going to play for Man United. And I haven't actually seen him since. But I hope that he's seen one of my documentaries.
I'm sure he has.
Showed him.
I mean, you always have such a big smile, and you seem to be so happy, when you're talking about wildlife and when you're doing these documentaries. I feel like you probably do see quite a lot of challenging things out there, whether you see upsetting things or, whether there's difficult times when you're out there in a brutal environment. Has there been any particularly challenging moments on these trips?
Yeah, lots. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm smiling all the time. I'd say there's a couple of things. One is like, yes, dark and depressing and troubling things are important to show. You need to be really careful how much you show those. And I think they are very powerful when used like in a really punctuated way. But just like hardcore, dark and depressing documentary, which I could make, by the way, our natural world is in a really sorry state. There are people that do that. They're very good at that. That's not kind of my vibe. I like to focus on, there's lots of examples of us humans getting it wrong with the natural world, but there are sadly less examples of us getting it right. And I think if you're trying to change human behavior, try telling someone to stop doing something, then try telling them, you can start doing something. We are wired to want to do the latter. So that's kind of what I focus on. I mean, what I would say is, as I mentioned, I'm super lucky, you get to go around the world, film animals doing amazing things. Wherever I go, the guide, the scientist, the local person, almost always now is saying, what you've seen on the shoot's amazing, but you should have seen how much more beautiful, epic, or numerous the animal you're filming was 10, 20, 30 years ago. That happens everywhere. And then every now and again, I bump into something where it's different. And they're like, no, like 20 years ago, we did X, Y, and Z. And like it worked and the animal has come back. And I think that is the one thing that kind of keeps me going, is that nature is so good at bouncing back if you give it the chance. Like it would be really scary if nature was bad at bouncing back, but it's not. It bounces back fast. You just need to give it the chance. So I see that as my job, is convincing people to give nature the chance to come back. And of course, I focus on, trying to convince politicians or CEOs or, really powerful people to do that, because you can make big change very quickly. But that doesn't mean to say as an individual, you can't make a difference. Like we just need to make our planet wilder. So, whether you have like a little garden or a little even corner of your apartment, like get some plants that are friendly to local insect pollinators, like, or if there's a nature reserve down the road, like get involved, make it wilder, make it bigger. It might not seem like much, but I think the cool thing about that is you will see quantifiable results. And I think that is the key, because with the climate crisis and the chaos that we're in, like, I just feel like the climate crisis has been communicated to us so badly. If you ask someone on the street, what if I ask you, like, what's the climate crisis about? You're probably going to tell me about carbon emissions and temperature. Like, what? Like, what does that even mean? Like, gas in the sky, and like, it's very like abstract. Whereas if I told you, well, the reason we're worried about those two things is because it leads to the destruction of nature. We need nature. Much easier to get your head around. Everyone understands that you cut a big tree down, that's a bad thing. So I just feel like we need to focus on that, and as a way to sort of get our heads around it, because then that means the solution's a lot more straightforward as well. Look after the existing natural world and make our planet wilder. I just feel like that's a much easier thing to get your head around.
Yeah. And a much more like relatable thing rather than just like gas floating around in the sky.
Yeah. And of course, like, talking about cutting carbon emissions and switching to renewables, incredibly important, of course. And please do that. But it's you won't see, if you, I don't know, switch your house to renewables, you're not going to see the global temperature come down, because you need to also convince 99%, the rest of the world to do that, which please do. But that's why making the planet wilder is so cool, because you will see quantifiable results. Even if the rest of the world is on fire, your little patch that you have control of, you can make a better place.
Yeah, I love that. And like, insects are so cool, bees are so cool, and wildflower meadows are so beautiful. So it's a win-win.
Oh, totally. No brainer.
And Bertie, as someone who travels a lot, what's it like? And you see these amazing things. What's it like returning home after a trip like this? Because it must feel quite strange going from some Antarctica or somewhere, or South Africa, to Bristol.
Yeah, so I've got I got a bunch of friends in the military, and I think, I'm not saying it's like coming back from a war zone for 1 second. Well, I mean, some of the time, some of the things I've seen in the natural world are, but it's that like, I think there's a lot of relatable things in that you have like, when you're on a shoot, on an expedition, you're in a bubble. You're in this like amazing place, really cool team. You have this like one goal, and you're all collectively working towards it. And I love that about filming as opposed to photography. Photography is quite like a solo endeavor. Filming, like, it's a big team effort. I love that. You have this collective goal, and life's like very simplified. You just have this like one thing. You wake up, you do it, you go to sleep, you do it again. And then you come home, and I have these like, I call it like post-shoot blues. You have no purpose, and I'll be like stood in like the aisle in the supermarket, like in Sainsbury's, deciding which type of salad I want to buy. And I'm just stood there like, what am I doing? Like, I was looking at penguins on icebergs like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, how long it took me to come home. I should probably go and I should just go back there. Like, that place makes sense to me. So yeah, it's really weird. It takes me like 2 or 3 days to like get my head around it, and then I sort of slot back into a different routine. But I much prefer when it takes a long time to come back from location. I hate the actual travel, but that process really helps your brain, I think, with the understanding that this place is far away. You're in like it's a different thing. You're in a different mode. And I think it probably has something to do with like the science of PTSD. I'm not sure. I'm not saying for 1 second I have PTSD, but I was reading a really interesting thing. PTSD was first kind of identified and discussed after the Falklands War in the 80s.
Cool.
And one thing that they found was that the British Army had Royal Marines and British Army fighting in the Falklands, amongst others. And the Army guys flew home. And so they were back from the Falklands in less than 24 hours. Whereas the Royal Marines came back on Navy ships that I think actually went via the Caribbean. It took them like a month to get home. And they found that in the Royal Marine soldiers that fought in the Falklands, there was next to no cases of PTSD. Whereas in the Army soldiers, there were huge numbers. And they think it's because you've got that time to kind of process it and separate the two worlds. And you're also with lots of people that went through the same thing. Like, so I think there's an interesting comparison there, whereby I'll be in the middle of nowhere having this incredibly unique experience with a group of people, the only 3 other people on Earth that will understand what we've just done in Antarctica, diving with whales or whatever. And then you come home and you're not with them. I think there's sorry, that was a very long-winded ramble, but I think it's fascinating, the sort of modes that you can put your brain in different scenarios.
Completely. And when you come back from somewhere like that, do you try and take the long road home?
Well, I mean, as I said, it's kind of a catch-22, because I actually hate traveling, like, with a passion. I love being in a cool place far away, but I hate the A to B. Like going through an airport with like 50 bags is just not, it's like fun the first time. And then every other time you're like, this is very tedious. So I would say yes, but no. Yeah, I know it's good for me, but I don't like it.
So would you be an advocate of teleportation?
Well, I think that would be a very bad thing for all those kind of mental things you've just been chatting about.
But thanks to your detest
hatred
of travel. It's tricky.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's. I've got a buddy called Aldo Kane who's on the TV lots. He's a ex-Royal Marine sniper, and he now does lots of expedition and wildlife documentaries. And having been in the military before, he's got a really fascinating insight into all these worlds and how they compare. And he says, I was asking him about like, what do you do, having been in both? Like, what are you taught? And he was talking about these like circuit breaker activities that it's really important that you do. And when you get home, you need these like several circuit breaker activities. So like, he will unpack his bag and he'll hoover the whole house. Like even if the house is clean, he'll hoover the whole house and he'll unpack his bag straight away. Whereas I'll like string it out for like a week. I definitely won't hoover. I mean the unpacking of my bag. And he's like, no, that's like a really good thing to do because it like teaches your brain, okay, this chapter is done. Now we're in the new chapter. That's like your circuit breaker. So yeah, maybe combining those with teleportation is the future.
You've heard it here first.
I feel like if we can do teleportation, we can probably figure out some kind of system to hoover the house by just gets done.
Oh God. And I mean, you talked about there sort of the expeditions and sort of the parallels a little bit with military life in terms that you go to such extreme places and it's physically very difficult. How do you train for a lot of the stuff that you do?
I think like keeping a really good level, well, I guess physically first, keeping a good like baseline level of fitness is important. I mean, some shoots were basically just like, if I was just filming cheetahs, you're sat in a car driving around. It's so easy. The only time my heart rate went up was when like a hunt started happening and I was just watching something exciting. But yeah, no physical activity whatsoever. But then some shoots you're like, climbing or carrying stuff and it's brutal. So I think just, my fitness does this because of the different types of shoots that I do. I do a big variety. But I think just maintaining like a really good baseline level of fitness is important. Like I really enjoy running. I think probably physical fitness is important, but also very useful is like your mental fitness. And it's very hard to describe like the intensity of the shoots that I go on and also the intensity that I like to like operate at. And I think lots of film crews operate in different ways, but I think people that come on like Animals Up Close, my series, because we have to do a lot in a month. When we film on the David Attenborough series, the shoots are intense, but you will do one shoot for a 4-minute sequence. Whereas for Animals Up Close, we will film an entire episode in that same time period, like a whole 45-minute, hour-long series. So we just got more to do. And because of the nature of the kind of behind the scenes and the wildlife, you can make TV out of anything you're doing. So you're kind of always on. So I think you need like a really high level of mental fitness. And I think that's something that you train by doing. You kind of exercising that muscle of like logistical planning and then like creativity as well combined with that. I think that's a very hard thing to kind of train for without just doing.
Yeah. You got to get out of your comfort zone and see where it takes you.
And just not switch off. Yeah, that's like, it's a lot.
And I mean, in all of your documentaries and the series that you've done, is there one that stands out as a top favourite? Are you allowed to have favourites?
Oh, definitely. I can have favourites, can't I? One that is very close to my heart and was probably the most epic thing I've seen and potentially will ever see. I hope I'm wrong, but I think was my first. So Animals Up Close, the original season of it was called Epic Adventures. And that was my first series for Disney Plus. So it was like a amazing opportunity, really terrifying. I'd basically sold the whole series on one episode, which we made 5 episodes, but on one episode, which was going down to Antarctica to try and film the comeback of the greatest gathering of wildlife on Earth. these fin whale gatherings that you get down there, super kind of mystical, not much known about them, happen off of Elephant Island, which just has the worst weather. There's tens of thousands of penguins and seals, and it's just this like unbelievable party. And not only is it as an amazing thing, it's something that hasn't been as good as it is for 100 years because of the whaling era. Ban on whaling in the 70s. Now the whales are coming back. La la la. And so many ups and downs. Like, we were meant to have 2 shoots for that episode. The first shoot, I was literally stepping on the boat in South America to set sail for Antarctica at the end of February 2020. Got a call from National Geographic to say, do not get on that boat. There's this thing called COVID, come home.
Oh no.
And that was like the first shoot of my first Disney Plus series. And then we like sat on our butts for, 6-7 months, however long that first kind of lockdown was. So I was like, something in the universe does not want me to make this series. So then it all came down to just one shoot. And we arrived on location. We'd sailed to Antarctica, lots of vomiting. And I was like, we've got this amazing team. We're actually going to pull this off. And then we just had the most brutal weather. And in the month we had down there, we had just 6 days where we could actually film. And I mean, if you watch the episode, Epic Adventures on Disney Plus, it got down to our second last day, and then kind of the clouds parted, and everyone that watches it is like, the second last day, like,
yeah, you made it up.
Likely story. It is true. It was unbelievable, and I remember so vividly like how stressful and like, it's just telly, people will say, but like the amount of my life that had been like building to finding this thing and filming this thing. And I knew, you only get to fail once. You're only as good at it, as your last story with National Geographic. And I just remember walking to the bow of the boat to scan the horizon at the start of the day, just like I had done every other day. And when I picked up my binoculars to my eyes, just like my entire field of vision on the horizon was just like 20-foot jets of water backlit by the rising sun, just like 300 whales all just like blah 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 like cannons, and I was like, on the one hand I was like, oh my god, this is actually real, we might actually be able to film it, and then just this awful feeling of dread, like, now we've got to film it, how do we do that? And fortunately it was with an amazing team and we pulled it off, and so that was probably my favorite.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I thought, Bertie, we could do a cheeky little quick fire just so listeners could get to know you a little bit more. Are you ready?
Okay, I think so. Maybe. Let's find out.
Would you rather be hot or cold?
Cold. Easy.
What's your spirit animal and why?
Spirit animal, we'll go with peregrine falcon. Fastest animal on Earth. Its Latin name, Falco peregrinus. Falco means falcon, peregrinus means the wanderer. And that's a perfect name because it can live in so many different places, whether that be, the mountains, the coast, or even in big cities. I photographed them a lot in Bristol and in London. So yeah, they're cool animals.
That's really cool. I was going to say golden retriever, but I think peregrine falcon might just,
Better story.
Okay, and Bertie, you're having a dinner party. You can choose 4 people, dead or alive. Who's coming?
Oh, wow. Big Dave, obviously. David Attenborough.
Big Dave.
Big Dave, big Dave. I have actually been lucky enough to work with him and actually have dinner with him, which is very cool, but I'd have it again in a heartbeat. Who else? Maybe Jacques Cousteau. I'm sure he's got some good stories. Oh, who is fascinating? You're really putting me on the spot here.
Should have quick fire.
Yeah, it's very slow fire right now. Let's go with.
Go on. Who's in your head?
This is really hard. You completely stumped me. Let's think about films that I've seen recently. Jaws, Spielberg. That'd be cool. And
one more.
Last one.
You can bring your mum. Like it's.
Yeah. I mean, she'd be fun. That's a very safe answer, isn't it?
Anyone else?
Let's go with a comedian because it's good to have fun. Michael McIntyre's a good laugh, so yeah, we'd have him. I think he's got like quite wholesome chat, and I think that would be important.
Love his energy.
I'd love to see the banter between Jacques Cousteau and Michael McIntyre. Yeah, that's kind of a niche
Big Dave
thing. And Big Dave, yeah, obviously.
And final question: would you rather be able to speak to animals or breathe underwater?
Great question. I would say speak to animals.
Why?
Because would we be mates, or like would they just tell me about all the bad things that we're doing to them?
Well, I mean, I think if you build a friendship with them, I guess you can be mates.
Okay, we can be friends.
You're just chatting to them, like, you know, it's.
I mean, I'd probably speak to animals because I feel like we could solve a lot of problems. It would also mean making wildlife documentaries would be so much easier. So I'd have a real edge. So yeah, I'd probably do that. Although breathing underwater would be pretty sweet. But we have some technology that allows us to do that to a certain extent.
Love it. And I mean, just lastly, have you got any advice for those budding wildlife filmmakers, documentary makers who are thinking, I want to be like Bertie Gregory? What should they do?
Well, don't do that for starters. That's a terrible aspiration. But no, so people interested in wildlife, I think we live in an amazing time in that kind of the act of filming wildlife has become so democratized because, you know, we all have a phone with a camera in our pocket. So I would say the most important thing you can do is start. Go make wildlife films. Failure is very important. Make wildlife films. That's how you learn. You know, we all have access to a free broadcasting platform, whether that be Instagram or YouTube or whatever. Put your films out there. You will get plenty of feedback, both positive and negative. You'll learn a lot. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, I realize, you know, I'm in a fortunate position. When I go to film festivals or wherever, I get lots of people asking, can I have a job or can I work with you on your next project? And the first thing I'm always interested in is like, okay, what have you done to like realize that aspiration, that dream? And so often people are like, oh, well, I'm waiting for my lucky break. And I think that is a very interesting thing because I have had a lot of lucky breaks, but you need to make that luck. And so if one of the most important skills is initiative in making wildlife films. And so if you can demonstrate that you've got initiative, that is a superpower. And so if you're saying, oh, I'm waiting for someone to give me an opportunity, it's like, doesn't sound like you got much initiative. Whereas if I meet someone that goes like, oh, I made this really cool film about the pigeons that live down the road. You know, I shot them from this really weird camera angle, did it on my phone. I find that so impressive. And it's like, this person's got something, versus someone that either hasn't done something or goes, oh yeah, I got to go on a safari and here's some pictures of lions. Like, that's not impressive. That shows zero initiative. So yeah, I'd say get out there and do it. Take risks, fail on your own time, so that when you do get lucky and you get to meet someone that could give you a job, they see that you're hungry and you've got that drive and initiative.
Bertie, thank you so much for coming on the Passion Stories podcast. You've been a brilliant guest.
Thanks so much. Good to chat.
Oh my word, I'm so inspired. Unbelievable, what a guy. I mean, the passion, I really hope you can feel that passion because I could feel it. Phenomenal. Someone who just absolutely loves wildlife and loves what he does. And I feel like you can really sense his fulfillment in what he does and his desire to, let people know that sharks aren't that scary. You know, sharks are amazing and fascinating, and definitely go and watch Sharks Up Close. It's an absolutely fantastic documentary. And, you know, there's moments there when you're on the edge of your seat, what's going to happen? And it's wonderful. You know, so many goosebumps. And Bertie talked about that moment when he's there with the whales and their calves and the dolphins come. And I think like being in that sort of incredible nature, just really gives you a wonderful perspective and appreciation above all for nature and for our planet. And I mean, I felt that when I was with the dolphins paddleboarding, but I do feel like Bertie had a slightly more wonderful encounter. And that brings me to Bertie's next series, which is called Dolphins Up Close. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. But I mean, it does make you think how you can go from, he's just basically lived and breathed his passion as much as he possibly can. I mean, and he says, he talks about those lucky breaks. But it is epic to know that put in that hard work, go for it, and amazing things can come. And I also think, part of it is that unrelenting passion. And I do think Bertie's a wonderful example of that. It's everything he lives and breathes. And I guess, what I didn't ask him was about the sacrifices that come with being away the whole time on these expeditions and stuff like that. And I do wonder, but he'll have to come back on and tell us all about it another time. But go and check out Sharks Up Close and go and follow Bertie on social media if you haven't already. He is Bertie Gregory, and there's some incredible footage on there, the things he gets up to. I mean, the ultimate one is the penguins off the shelf, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it. Go and watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. So thank you, Bertie, for coming on. What an inspiring and very passionate guest. And as always, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, rate the Passion Stories podcast, tell your friends, share the podcast, and share the passion with people you know. And make sure you follow me on socials. I'm at Emma S.E. Cole, so you can find out who the next wonderful Passion Stories podcast guest is. And they'll be coming up in a fortnight. Thanks to Toontank for the tunes.